Hello friends, I'm back from my hiatus and I can't wait to share more backtested strategies with you. Apparently the top performing keyword on my website is the QQE indicator, so let's create another QQE strategy. So in this video, I'll use StrategyQuant's genetic algorithm together with a custom template to automatically generate a Euro-dollar strategy. For those new to StrategyQuant, its key feature is its genetic algorithm, which allows automatic generation of trading strategies. Essentially, you select your strategy's building blocks like its indicators and entry types, after which StrategyQuant iterates through millions of indicator combinations and selects the top performing ones. Rather than have a completely random combination of indicators, you can design your own strategy template that uses a particular indicator a certain way. I will illustrate this process with the QQE. But first, what's the QQE indicator? The QQE is plotted below prices and made up of two lines, the smooth RSI line and the slow trailing line. The MQL4 source code is not the most reader-friendly, so let me break it down for you. To get the smooth RSI line, we first calculate the 14-period RSI. Then obtain the smooth RSI by taking the 5-period EMA of the RSI. Step 3. For each bar, obtain the absolute value of the change in the smooth RSI value. Apply a 27-period EMA, twice, to the value in Step 3. And finally, obtain the slow trailing line by multiplying the result of Step 4 by 4.236. So in essence, the QE is a heavily smoothed RSI. Compared to the regular 14-period RSI, the QQE's smooth RSI line is smoother, and the slow trailing line is the result of further smoothing. The QQE is most commonly used to detect short-term momentum. When the smooth RSI line crosses above the slow trailing line, it indicates short-term momentum is to the upside, and long trades may be taken. Conversely, when the smooth RSI crosses below the slow trailing line, short-term momentum is to the downside, and shorts may be more appropriate. So let's code a custom strategy template that contains this entry condition. Open up StrategyQuant and head over to the Algo Wizard tab. Select New Strategy, name it whatever you want. Select the full editor and check the Strategy Template option. Under Settings, head to Advanced and toggle the template mode. This will allow you to insert random placeholders later. I usually like to keep my templates as simple as possible. My preference is to use only the long and short entry tabs. Under each entry tab, I will remove all existing conditions. Now let's add our custom conditions. First up is the QQE condition. The QQE crossing above and below conditions are pre-programmed, so you just need to search for the QQE and select the relevant condition. Value 1 refers to the smooth RSI line, while value 2 refers to the slow trailing line. I will use the default parameters here. SF is the 5-period smoothing for the 14-period RSI, while 4.236 is the multiplier that produces the slow trailing line. We're not going to use a single loose condition like this, of course. Next is the randomly generated entry condition that StrategyQuant's genetic algorithm will derive for us. Add a new condition and click on the Random Conditions tab. Name the condition something logical, and that's it. Now we will configure the trade entry and management. I'm a fan of using stop entries. You get a poorer execution price, but better entry accuracy in return. This trade-off is generally worth it, so I will remove the market order and insert a stop order. First, you need to configure the entry price. This is not a trivial issue, since an appropriate entry price depends on the choice of entry conditions. I usually let the algorithm generate this, so I'll select random value from the Random tab and name it by stop. Current symbol refers to the chart the EA is attached to, and the long direction is already correct, so I won't touch those. For position size, I usually select Use Global Money Management. This means that you can control your position sizing for both the long and short sides using the tab at the top right, where you can select from a few common methods. Since we are dealing with pending orders, we have to determine how many bars the order will be valid for. I usually select a small number here. If a certain entry has an edge, it shouldn't take long for prices to move in your favor. I will let the algorithm generate it randomly, but only up to a maximum of 5 bars. Keying in the range in this format means the output will vary from 1 to 5 in steps of 1. And finally, for exit methods, I will just check all the options here. Later on, when configuring the algorithm, I will shortlist the exits I'm interested in. Remember, whatever exits you're interested in need to be enabled in the template. The specifics of each exit will be generated randomly. There is also an identification tab for the buy stop. I will just call it long entry. That's it for the long side. Now head over to the short tab. Same thing here for the QQE, except that we will select the crosses below condition instead. For the randomly generated condition, we want the negated version of the long entry. For example, if a RSI above 70 condition triggers a long, a RSI below 30 condition should trigger a short. So select negated condition, and make sure the long condition created earlier is chosen. For the sell stop, the entry price will be opposite that of the buy stop. So if we go long at the daily high, we will go short at the daily low. The remainder of the short entry will be similar to the long side, so select, same as, for each element and select the long identifier. Save your template and we will now input it to the genetic algorithm. Head over to the Builder tab. Let's use the predefined Forex configuration as a starting point. Now go to Full Settings and select Strategy from Template, and select your template file. In general, I make my strategies symmetrical on the long and short sides. There are some markets like stock indices where directional biases exist. It's more balanced for Forex. For the number of conditions, I'll limit it to no more than 2. Recall that we have one QQE condition together with the random condition placeholder. This means that we will have a maximum of 3 entry conditions, which will minimize curve fitting. I will make stop losses mandatory. Stops don't necessarily improve your net profits, but they drastically minimize the likelihood of sustaining a large loss, so I prefer to have them. I'll replace the percent with the ATR-based stop and increase the range to 2 to 5 ATR. A very tight stop is often a recipe for disaster. I want to let the trend run until the end of Friday, so I won't use a profit target for this strategy. The default genetic settings are fine, so I won't touch them. For data, select the right engine depending on your trading platform. Toggle additional charts if you want your strategy's entry conditions to refer to another market, for example if you're trading the euro-dollar but want to reference the pound-dollar. The strategy will only trade on the main market specified below, which will the 1-hour euro-dollar from January 2013 to December 2022. With selected timeframe only precision, each bar will be modeled only using its OHLC prices. With 1-minute data tick simulation, 1-minute OHLC will be used to simulate intrabar price action. It is more precise, but generation times will be longer. Select a spread that your broker typically has. With Fusion Markets, I often get 0 spread even during Asian hours, but I will use 2 pips to be conservative. To learn how to code an EA to monitor your broker's spread, check out the video at the top right. A new addition in StrategyQuant Build 138 is the possibility to add swap as a transaction cost, which can be significant if you hold a trade for longer periods. I will make a future video to explain this feature in detail. I always add an out-of-sample data portion when generating strategies. The simplest option is a 50-50 split. Optimization will only be performed over the 5-year and sample portion. The out-of-sample portion is unseen, much like what you have in live trading, and can be used to verify the strategy's robustness. Alternatively, you can also experiment with some of the preset configurations above. Under Trading Options, I will exit on Friday, 2 hours before the New York close, and prevent any entries after that time. The times here apply to brokers using a GMT +2 time zone. Building blocks is where you select all the indicators or elements you are willing to include in your strategy. I suggest only including indicators you are familiar with. I'm quite traditional. Simple choices like the ATR and Bollinger Bands work well enough for me. Recall in the template earlier, we configured the stop entry price to be generated randomly. Stop limit entry blocks is where you select the indicators used to determine that price. I like simple options like daily prices and moving averages. For entry types, we have to select stop entries because we specified that in the template. In the template, all the exit options were checked. Here is where you can shortlist whatever you want. Profit targets will be excluded, but I'm willing to use bar-based time stops and trailing stops. The advanced trade management is useful if you want to scale out of a position. If you do decide to use it, I suggest using the same settings across multiple strategies or markets. Using a different method for each strategy is just another sneaky form of curve fitting. For money management, I will choose a fixed size so I can observe the strategy's consistency without the effects of compounding. The purpose of a backtest is to objectively quantify a strategy's historical performance, not to intentionally produce huge profits. Many vendors love to cherry-pick their most favorable backtest and then apply aggressive position sizing, producing fantastical profits. Don't be naive. I will disable cross-checks during the build. I usually do robustness testing separately, after the build. Check out the playlist at the top right for some common robustness tests. And finally, for ranking, I will let the algorithm run for an hour. The fitness function is the metric the algorithm uses to rank strategies. As part of the genetic evolution process, higher ranking strategies will be selected and progressively improved upon. Automatic filters weed out strategies with obvious problems, like those with too few trades. I always check all 10. Custom filters let you set the minimum performance benchmark. This is highly subjective, so you have to understand what's important to you. I will use a 1.3 profit factor with a minimum trading frequency of 3 times a month, or about 350 trades over 10 years. Minimum expectancy is 5 pips per trade and stagnation should be no more than 3 years. Now you can finally start the builder. Here's one of the strategies that pass the filters. Before checking the performance, let's verify that the logic adheres to the template. Head over to the Source Code tab and toggle the pseudocode. At the long entry section, here is the QQE entry condition we coded. The randomly generated condition uses the Connors RSI, which is a derivative of the traditional RSI that is supposedly faster and more reliable. I previously combined it with Donchian channels to trade reversals on the dollar Canadian. You can check it out at the top right. Here's a brief flashback. The Connors RSI is calculated by averaging 3 components. First is a regular 3-period RSI, which measures short-term momentum. Second is a 2-period RSI of the number of consecutive higher or lower closes, which measures trend duration. The last component ranks the current price change versus the 100 most recent price changes, which measures the magnitude of price change. For this strategy, a 96 look-back period is used for the price momentum component, while a 28 look-back period is used for the trend duration component. Looking for the RSI to be below 70 essentially means we want to avoid overbought conditions. On the short side, the Connor's RSI needs to be above 30, so the logic has been correctly flipped. Stop entries will be at a 20-period EMA of typical prices, valid for 3 bars, which is in the middle of the 1 to 5 bar range specified in the template. A 2 ATR stop loss is used. Profitable trades are exited using the Friday 10 p.m. exit. Looking through the list of trades, 279 trades hit the stop loss, while the other 174 used the Friday exit. Now let's check out the performance. Did the strategy pass the custom filters? Overall profit factor is 1.53, above the 1.3 threshold. We have over 350 trades, expectancy is about 10 pips, and stagnation is under 1,100 days. We have a nice payout ratio of 3, meaning the strategy cut losses quickly and let profits run. The equity curve is uptrending, without any major differences between the first 5 years, which is the in-sample portion, and the remaining 5-year out-of-sample portion. That's all, folks. Hopefully, with the use of custom templates, you can leverage StrategyQuant's genetic algorithm without sacrificing your trading idea. Have fun building, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you at the next one.